WHGE 95.3 FM. Coming up, the Open Eye. All right. Let's get it going. Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove. Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs. And as we always start, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And that's what we do right here on the Open Eye, right here on WHGE 95.3 FM. Whoa, got a little background there. All right. Let me get my disclaimer out of the way. The views and opinions expressed on the Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual. All right. Let's get them going. I've used this before since I had a couple by this great poet, Khalil Gibran, and what he said about the teacher. No man can reveal to you aught but that which already lies half asleep in the dawning of your knowledge. The teacher who walks in the shadow of the temple among his followers gives not of his wisdom, but rather of his faith and lovingness. If he is indeed wise, he does not bid you to enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your own mind. Yeah, it's from the great poet Khalil Gibran. I have another one here. Fear. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. It's from Khalil Gibran. Hey, Sister Sherry, how you doing? All right. Moving right along. Today is day 3 of Kwanzaa. I hope you're having a joyous Kwanzaa. All right. Today is Ujima. Ujima collective work and responsibility to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Yes, indeed. I see you, Sister Ruth. Hey, Sherry. All right. Moving right along. You know, we are a generous people. And that generosity has often got us in trouble. This is what Baba Imhotep says. Kwanzaa was created by us, for us. Never forget it. Don't keep saying things like anybody can practice Kwanzaa or Kwanzaa's principles are universal. Anybody can adhere to them. While this may be true, we must never forget the fact that Kwanzaa was not created for everybody. I mean other races. So let's stop having the conversation about if other people can practice Kwanzaa. There is such a thing as cultural appropriation. So I'm sure other people are practicing Kwanzaa. But this doesn't change the fact that we must stop going out of our way to invite and include people into our stuff. It's perfectly fine to be exclusive. Stop worrying yourself with inclusion. Africa and all things African for Africans. Race first. Yeah, I know some people, I could go there, I know that one. You know, I understand that. But like I said, race first. You're like Dr. Clark said, I am not racist, but I am racial. And I grant you the right to put your people first, as long as that doesn't include impeding on my people, because I have every intention of putting them first. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. All right. This is the Open Eye. You know, it's something, of course, when I say these things, and with Brother Allen, and I know a lot of our people get, how can I say, caught up in their religion, spirituality. And it's so interesting that they do so without even having studied. Because you have to ask questions. How can a God who created the cosmos be confined to religions that came so late in the history of the universe? Think about that. Christianity is like 2,000 years old. Islam is an AD religion, not a BC religion. Oh, well, of course, there's Judaism. Yeah. And that brings me to the history of Israel. Israel has a 3,000-year history that started in 1948. And we have our people look at our own spirituality. And we're dealing with, a whole lot of misconceptions, lack of knowledge and education. The lack of knowledge is the bane of our existence. unwillingness to understand. Because one of the things that we misunderstand, one of the biggest misconceptions about African spirituality is that there is a belief in multiple gods. The truth is there is a belief in one creator. The different energies that are revered are aspects of the divine force, which can be found in nature. Examples of these are Neteru, Kemetic, Orishas, which is Yoruba, Abasan, which is Akan, and it goes on. Now, returning to our original African spirituality can help us win our revolution. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Read your history. African spiritual practices in the 18th and 19th centuries were associated with slave revolts. Enslaved Africans believed that the practices gave them spiritual protection. Read 1804, Haiti. Duty Bookman told the Haitian people, the Haitian rebels, cling to your own God, to your own spirituality. Now you're free. That's why the colonials enacted a series of laws over the years preventing traditional worship. Christian missionaries went even further by declaring all aspects of these traditions the work of the devil. And you know how many people believe that? You know, I actually have argued with people and debated and berated people. I had a brother tell me, oh, the reason Haiti has so much trouble is they turned their backs on God and they were into that evil voodoo. Okay. Hey, you're reading all those books. You start reading all those books and read this one right here. You should not be afraid of someone who has a library and reads many books. You should fear someone who has only one book. He considers it sacred and ain't even never read it. Damn. WHGE, wait, I ain't finished with y'all. Wait a minute. What's this? Yeah. One more thing to say on that. Right. You know, it's something, I grew up in church. And one of the things about being in church took me time to realize it was very entertaining. Yeah, it was. It was very entertaining. You had ministers that were great speakers, and the choir would sing, get you all excited and what have you. Okay. When the ministry becomes performance, then the sanctuary becomes a theater. The congregation becomes an audience. Worship becomes entertainment. And man's applause and the approval become the measure of success. Hey, so it's not the lessons you take and go forth with. Which is why, you see a lot of men and a lot of young people. If I want to be entertained, I can look at TikTok or YouTube or something. Yeah. Not being here with these judgmental people put me down. I don't show up the way they think I should be. I heard a brother say that one of the reasons that a lot of people don't like Christianity is because the Christians are one of the main groups that declare if you don't do it our way, the way we see it, you're condemned and I can't have nothing to do with you. Yeah. But your rules of your religion say don't be judgmental. Jeez Louise. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. You are enjoying the open eye. Sister Sherry said Christians are nothing but judgmental hypocrites. Sound like we're being hard on Christians, but it is the reality. Yeah, it's something that as technology advances, we forget. We forget that your brain is a supercomputer. From Brother Haru. Updated software. How? With books, podcasts, and experience. Protect this battery. 8 hours of sleep. Connect with nature. And take a digital detox. And deal in the 3D world more. Instead of just on your phone with TikTok and this, that, and the other. And clean your hard drive. Your mind. How do you do that? Meditate. Journal. Write. Look back at your day. And analyze it. And be careful how you talk to yourself. Talk to yourself with affirmation and positivity. It's part of the programming. You have to program yourself. Here is something, what's the brother's name? David Banner. He talked about the computer being programmed and compared it to the human brain and what we've been through. Okay? We've seen people do all kinds of little nasty stuff with computers and online and what have you. Now, if a computer is programmed and a virus is uploaded to that program, do you blame the computer or the programmer that uploaded that virus? It's the same thing with the slave mentality. Stop blaming yourself for the way you have been programmed. Do those self-talks and reprogram, because the chains of oppression on our minds are deep and difficult to remove. Let's get a little history here. Months after the fall of the Confederacy and into slavery, a half-dozen veterans of the Confederate Army formed a private social club in Pulaski, Tennessee, called the Ku Klux Klan. The KKK soon became a terrorist organization, brutalizing and killing Black Americans, immigrants, sympathetic whites, and others. While the first wave of the KKK operated in the South through the 1870s, the second wave spread throughout the U.S., adding Catholic, Jews, and others to their enemies list. The second wave, the 1920s, after the movie Birth of a Nation was released by D.W. Griffith. This movie was screened in the White House by Woodrow Wilson, who called it the most important movie of our time. And this was the tool. The movie made heroes of the KKK. And their membership grew to about 4 million. Now, the KKK returned again in the 1950s and 60s, this time in opposition to the Civil Rights Movement. Despite the history of violence by this organization, the federal government has yet to declare the KKK a terrorist group. Now, the Southern Poverty Center, and correctly so, declared the KKK a hate group, which is, of course, what it is. It is a terrorist group and has been from its inception. And how did we get there? How did it keep coming back? Okay, because we are not educated. And not so much we as black people, but white society in general. Because what they want to do is they want to close the door on any of our history. I can't tell you how many times I've had or heard white people say, well, if you just stop talking about it, it'll go away. I'll be damned. You ain't went nowhere, your racist ass. And this has always been the way. Dating back to the 1800s. For instance, on December 21st, 1837, following an anti-slavery speech by Vermont Representative William Slade, the U.S. House of Representatives overwhelmingly renewed and expanded a rule that prohibited any future discussion about the abolition of slavery in the House. The so-called gag rule, initially passed in 1836, remained in effect until 1844, preventing the topic of abolition from even being discussed for almost a decade. The debate over slavery had divided the House, but the constitutional provision that counted enslaved people as 3/5 of a person for the purpose of determining congressional representation gave Southern representatives the majority they needed to completely shut down any debate on the subject. In December 1835, South Carolina Representative James Hammond proposed the initial gag rule that required, under the pretext of maintaining order in the House, that petitions or discussions about slavery should be immediately tabled without consideration or discussion. The rule, which effectively silenced any representatives who opposed slavery, was instituted in May of the following year under James K. Polk, who was Speaker of the House at the time and would later become U.S. President. This laid the foundation for Virginia Representative John Mercer Patton, who responded to William Slade's anti-slavery speech by renewing the gag rule. His resolution declared that all petitions, memorials, and papers touching the abolition of slavery or the buying, selling, or transporting of slaves in any state, district, or territory of the United States be laid on the table without being debated, printed, read, or referred, and in no further action whatever shall be had thereon. The 1837 gag rule was a more extreme version of the 1836 version, applying not just to current U.S. states, but also to U.S. territories, which were administered by the federal government. It allowed the House to ignore without discussion the tens of thousands of petitions sent by citizens calling on the chamber to forbid the expansion of slavery into these territories. The extraordinary act of bearing all discussion of a central moral and political issue that was shaping the nation created untold challenges, and is part of the legacy of avoidance and silence about racial injustice in America. Because this is the same thing that the right-wing white supremacists want to do now. They want to bar any discussion about racism. And one of the things that the Tangerine terrorist declared, that when he got in office, all this talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, would be put to a stop. The racism, and this is the real crazy, the racism that the civil rights movement brought about, the racism against white Americans, and especially white males, all that will be put to a stop. I want to ban any discussion of it. Okay? And that's how you get things like this. Deathbed confessions. And the third that white supremacists have done. Okay? This is from a nurse, Sister Tracy. I want to thank you for posting this. And this was from a white woman, who's a nurse. And she said, had a woman dying from COVID confess something really heart-wrenching to me. She told me that when she was a teenager, she told her mother that one of the local black boys had touched her behind the grocery store. And in 1936, Louisiana, this was a very big deal. Not only was this boy lynched, but he was beaten and his genitals were cut off. And then the family home was burned to the ground. And she watched it all happen. You want to know why? Because she saw that his sisters had prettier dresses than she did. And she just didn't like it. So she lied. And then it clicked. This same woman had been hallucinating for the past couple of days, saying that there was a black boy in her room watching her, would not stop staring at her. And she was scared to death. She asked if she could be forgiven. The nurse said, she told her, the only person who could forgive you was the boy that you killed. I'm not sorry. And you wonder why many of us advise black women from making any connection or joining with white women. How many times in our history has that happened? Of course, most famously lied on was Emmett Till. Carolyn Bryant lied on him on a child, and they lynched and murdered him. But we don't want to talk about that. I'll be damned. Don't talk about it here. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. Hey, Steve, I see you, bro. All right. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist. Yeah, like I said, we're going to talk about it here. It's from this kid. Wearing a bulletproof backpack to school with metal detectors, armed guard, and routine mass shooter drills is the price of freedom. Yet books about Dr. King and Frank should be banned from my school because of controversial content. Yeah. It makes you uncomfortable. Oh yeah, they ban books. That's how I gotta give big ups to the black churches in Florida. Because where Governor Ron DeSatan has done everything he can to stymie the education on America's racist past, the black churches in Florida are picking up the ball and they're holding classes. Because this society is crazy as hell. You think about, I had one last week. How many school shooters has there been? Well, not one school shooter has ever been given the death penalty. U.S. government is seeking the death penalty for Luigi Maggione, who allegedly killed the healthcare insurance CEO. One rich CEO is worth so much more in this country than any child. That's how messed up they got you. Or that's how messed up they are. Yeah. Well, MAGA is infighting. Sitting back and watching this. Oh yeah, we having some fun now. How many of you heard of former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy? His name is almost very close to the descriptive word that personifies him. The Ramaswamy. A real piece of crap. He stirred him up MAGA. Now he's a first generation American whose father is not a U.S. citizen by his own account. And someone in the words former Republican candidate Vivek Ramaswamy suggested that American culture values mediocrity over excellence to defend why tech companies look to hire workers from overseas. And now he's catching heavy backlash from within his own party. He said there's nothing wrong with American workers or American culture. No, he didn't say that. This was in response to what he said. It's from Nikki Haley, another Indian American. Of course, she's closer in appearance to European, which she basically tries to pass for. She said there's nothing wrong with American workers or American culture. All you have to do is look at the border and see how many want what we have. We should be investing and prioritizing in Americans, not foreign workers. Now, what sparked this criticism was his comment. And he took the X and said, the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans, he doesn't mean indigenous people. Where he's calling, quote-unquote, Native Americans or white people. And it isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit. That's a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C-word, culture. This is what Vivek Ramaswamy said. Ramaswamy is a first-generation American. He goes on. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long. Well, at least since the 90s, and likely longer. Okay. His comments came as both he and former undocumented immigrant and billionaire Elon Musk support the H-1B visas over training and hiring American workers. President-elect Trump appointed Ramaswamy and Musk to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, which is just a joke. The new department will reportedly advise the Trump administration on how best to reduce wasteful federal spending. Yeah, fired morons like them. Turns out the waste that the Department of Government Efficiency wanted to cut from America was Americans. Yeah. That's what Ramaswamy said. You know, these American workers are mediocre. That's why these tech companies go overseas. So basically, tech bros prefer foreign-born workers because they're willing to work 90 hours per week rather than having a work-life balance. Meanwhile, conservative radio host John Cardillo called Ramaswamy's post one of the most offensive things I've read. America and Americans are not mediocre. India is a filthy third world hellscape. If it's so exceptional, why doesn't it hire? Why doesn't its tech talent want to stay there? Oh yeah, they're going back and forth with it. And of course with Musk there, he tried to bring in race, right? With these mediocre, you know what? You know, the right wing wants to tell you it's meritocracy. That's why white Americans get the better jobs, and it's, no, it ain't. No, it ain't. Didn't earn it. That's why these mediocre white Americans get some of these jobs. Because just like Vivek Ramaswamy said, but see, that's not really his motivation. Because the HB1, or is it HB1, H1B? And let me take a look back here. I want to get it right about these work visas. What is it? Yeah, H1B. These work visas. See, Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, they want to keep that going. Because these immigrant workers are a lot cheaper than American workers. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Okay? And that's what motivates someone. Of course, like I said, Elon Musk probably needs to be kicked out of his goddamn self. He went with race. And I found that real interesting, as he said that, well, all you have to do really is look at sports. That's why the NBA and the NFL are dominated by black people because they're bigger and stronger, but not smarter. Damn. I look at the football player that became a neurosurgeon. Let me ask you this. How many hockey players have PhDs? Because I can name a few black athletes that have PhDs. One most famously, like I said, I should have looked up his name, is the brother of a football player, became a neurosurgeon. And we have Dr. Shaquille O'Neal. And that wasn't no honorary doctorate. He earned his PhD. Yeah, it makes me think of when the Williams sisters were prevalent and dominating tennis. Because what their critics say is, well, they're bigger and stronger than these little polite playing white girls. Oh, Hingis is a smarter player. Venus and Serena destroyed her. And I'll tell you something else about Venus and Serena. They are, without a doubt, the most educated tennis players that have come through the Women's Tennis Association, WTA. Venus holds several degrees in interior design and fashion and what have you. Serena is well educated in the fields that she chose beyond tennis. So not only were they more physically fit, but they were more mentally fit. See, this is why the mediocre white supremacists don't want an even playing field, because they can't compete. That's simple. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. And what do? Continue to vote against your own interests. See, that shows how smart you ain't. Yeah. Make it make sense. Look, from Bishop Talbot Swan, Elon Musk, whose net worth is over $500 billion. He met with U.S. senators whose average net worth is $2.3 million. How the hell did they get all that rich? And who make $15,000 a month with fully paid health benefits. Musk met with these U.S. senators to discuss cutting Social Security benefits to people who get an average of $1,700 a month. Let that sink in. Make it make sense. Voting against your own interests. Seniors voted to cut Social Security. Men voted against women they say they love. Immigrants voted to be deported. And the poor voted for tax cuts for the rich. Meanwhile, the police voted for a felon. That part I understand. Yeah, the police voting for a felon? Yeah, that part I understand. A bunch of goddamn crooks themselves. And what they don't want is any accountability, and Trump promised them there would be none. So that's one group I understand voting for the tangerine terrorists. Because they do stuff like this, what I'm going to tell you about. If you haven't seen the uncut video, I probably advise you not to watch it. It's traumatizing. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the shocking body cam video released of New York officers fatally beating a prisoner. Robert Brooks, 43, died a day after being attacked by several correctional officers at the Marcy Correctional Facility on December 9th. His death has prompted an investigation. You don't need to do much investigation. Just look at the goddamn video. It's oh man. The Office of New York's Attorney General released body camera footage Friday showing the fatal beating of a state prisoner this month by correctional officers who punched and kicked him repeatedly while he was handcuffed on an infirmary bed. The incident, which has drawn outrage from political leaders and was condemned by officers' union as incomprehensible, is being investigated by State Attorney General Letitia James. The inmate, Robert Brooks, died in the hospital a day after the attack. I've seen the video. It's horrific. You got 5 or 6 men crowded around this man, Robert Brooks, this inmate, just repeatedly punching him. They have one scene where one of the cops picked him up by the neck and looked right in the camera. I do not take lightly the release of this video, especially in the middle of the holiday season, James said at a virtual news conference. These videos are shocking and disturbing. And beyond that, you have to wonder what kind of people these are. Brooks already seen in the video with his hands cuffed behind his back. In one video, he is sitting up as an officer presses his foot down on him. He is then punched by 2 officers. At another point, he is forcibly yanked from the bed by his shirt collar and held above the ground, his face visibly bloody. And he was beyond beaten into submission. But they weren't finished. I don't give a damn what he did, what rule he violated. Last week, Governor Kathy Hochul ordered the State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision to begin the process of firing 14 workers at the Marcy Correctional Facility in Oneida County, where the incident occurred. They include correctional officers, sergeants, and a prison nurse. In the interim, all have been suspended without pay, except for one officer who already resigned. Sister Sherry said, I don't know why it's shocking to them. That's what they do. They think in the way with it for so long. And this is American apple. This is as American as apple pie. But when it's brought to the forefront, we're shocked. That's a crock. Like you said, Sister Sherry, I don't know why it's so shocking. This is what they do. It's only shocking when they get caught and the public finds out about it. Because if you think the powers that be don't know what's going on, that's just silly. This was purposeful, intentional murder. All right? He was brought into the facility. All right? Into the exam room. Carried into the room, hanging upside down with hands handcuffed behind his back. And he didn't have to do much to get that kind of treatment. Just really non-cooperative or mouth off and say something. Let's see. And Teacher James said her Office of Special Investigation will conduct a review and make the video public after Brooks' family viewed it first, which she did. I can't imagine being in his family and watching that video. I would be heartbroken. I probably would have passed out. Brooks had been in prison since 2017 on a 12-year sentence for first-degree assault involving a longtime girlfriend. State correctional officials declined to detail what led Brooks to be transferred to Marcy Correctional Facility, a medium security prison. Like I said, this was, and it's something, you know, I feel real sorry for his family, because all of these officers should be charged with murder. The Correctional Association of New York and Independent Prison Oversight Group released a report last year after monitoring the Marcy Correctional Facility in October 2022. The report noted complaints of rampant physical abuse by staff members. Rampant. That's why Sister Sherry said, I don't know why they shot. This was rampant. With 80% of incarcerated people reporting having witnessed or experienced abuse, and nearly 70% reporting racial discrimination or bias. Yes, and Mr. Brooks was black. Like I said, he was purposely murdered. Nothing here to be shocked about. I'm Patrice Gibbs, WHGE 95.3 FM, Dove and I. WHGE, the Education Advocacy Station. You tune in here, you're going to get an education. It makes you think, when I say, yeah, he's black, I brought up the race and what happened. How many times have I heard, well, if you just stop talking about it, you're the race monger, because you won't stop talking about it. How can you stop talking about it when it keeps going on? And if you've ever spoken about white supremacy, you've probably been accused of being a reverse racist. But the reverse of racism is equality. Got this from the sister TikTok historian. Sorry, I forgot your name, sister. So what do people think reverse racism is, and why doesn't it exist? As we've been learning, race is a system that was invented to do racism and racialization, or the categorization of people by race. And it was done literally, it was literally invented to uplift white people. And that's not something I'm saying, that's something that they said in white supremacy. White supremacy is the false and harmful ideal that white Western Europeans are inherently superior in every way, and should therefore rule society, and society should revolve around them, because racism is systemic. We are taught racism, and that informs our beliefs, and our beliefs inform our behaviors. And so if we don't do the work of unlearning those racist beliefs, we might do racist actions, whether that happens consciously or subconsciously. Anyone, regardless of whether they're racially privileged or racially marginalized, can be racist. Not so. But by the rules of racism that the racists created, white people cannot be harmed by racism. They can only be uplifted. So in the context of white supremacy, if you're white, racism can't harm you, but it benefits you. And that's not my opinion. That's literally how and why race and racism were invented. Privilege means that you benefit from a system of oppression at the expense of others. And the system of oppression that you're benefiting from is race, then you can't be harmed by racism. But you can be harmed by other systems of oppression or privilege in other ways. The understanding comes from intersectionality theory, as coined by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. But by the rules of the construct of race and the racism that it enables, racism goes only in one direction. And we all have some idea that this is true. Otherwise, they wouldn't be calling their made-up phenomenon, reverse racism. And that's why you had, like Sister Sherry said, about the brother that was killed in the correctional facility. It was just another state-sanctioned murder because he got out of line. And the slave patrollers felt they had to make him pay the price. Yeah, Sister Sherry on it did that. Because if they're so superior as they claim, then they wouldn't have no reason to whitewash history, create excuses to justify their actions, yet deny it when being called out on it. Which brings me to this, because this feels like a fact that everybody should know. Like everybody should have been taught in high school, but for some reason we weren't. Okay? We don't have exit polling going back that far. But it's estimated that in 1964, Johnson, the Democrat, defeated Barry Goldwater, the Republican, amongst whites. And that is the last election, 1964, that the majority of white people voted for a Democrat. So the immediate question is what happened after 1964? What is the sin of the Democrats? That they did that. Whites so entirely abandoned them. And the answer is passing the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The sin of Democrats was that they attempted to ensure that black people could vote. And this goes all the way through to this year's voting. It's been 60 years since a Democratic presidential candidate has won the white vote. And the reason is clearly racism. Winding down here. I'm going to tell you something. I said this years ago. Probably when the Orange disaster first got in office. The Democratic Party are losers. Yeah. Why? Because the conservative light. As long as the Democratic Party remains all-inclusive, compromising right-leaning centrists, afraid to give up their financial ties to Wall Street gangsters, and trying to find ways to appeal to racist Southern whites they lost decades ago, 1964, 60 years ago, they'll continue to be losers. The first thing the Democrats have to do is abandon its Wall Street ties and start sending these nefarious crooks, along with their corporatist cronies, to jail. Recognize them for what they are, enemies of the American populace. They are greedy, evil sociopaths who wish to create an oligarchy with a ruling class and a starving, enslaved worker class. Either they contribute, to the American society they have benefited from, or take their money and send their ass to jail. And stop trying to appeal to racist Southern whites and racist blue-collar whites who are too stupid not to vote against their own goddamn best interests. Southern whites, who are the biggest majority of welfare recipients, are so stupid, dumb, and blinded by racism, they continue to vote for the right-wing jerks who can't wait to cut the very social services these impoverished racist fools depend on to survive. F them. They will continue to vote for right-wing elitists. They are too dumb to understand that these right-wing elitists hate them as much as they hate black people. The very black people that they encourage poor whites to hate. The same goes for the racist blue-collar whites in the North and Midwest, most of whom are only a paycheck away from the welfare rolls themselves. Most of their wages have been stagnant for 30 years. From the time they were dumb enough to vote for the evil reverse Robin Hood Ronald Reagan, may he roast in hell, may the devil sodomize him with a pitchfork. These blue-collar fools continue to hear the dog whistle racism and vote against their own interests. The hell with them too. How can Democrats be winners again? The first thing is to stop trying to appeal to and compromise with these regressive right-wing groups that are nothing but backward drags. Second, stop playing softball with the right and Republicans. Republicans speak the political language of kiss my ass and respond with the language of F you, kiss my ass. Most importantly, the Democrats must take a hard swing left and update the social democratic policies of FDR's New Deal and LBJ's Great Society. Socialism. Appeal to and benefit the true democratic base, which does not include racist whites who vote against their own interests. Progress on the victory. And that's the way to become winners. WHGE 95.3 FM, coming back with the close, the open eye. WHGE 95.3 FM, the open eye. Okay, we're coming to a close of the holiday season. I know a lot of people are doing the year in review. 2024 was a hell of a year. It was a year with ups and downs for most of us. Yeah, it was a tough year for the open eye and my family here at WHGE 95.3 as my dear friend and brother, co-host Nosaroma joined the ancestors. Peace and blessings to your memory. A progressive holiday greeting. I'm close with this. As we go through the holiday season and end of the new year and celebrate our different holidays in our many different ways, some celebrated, some yet to be celebrated. Let us respect our differences and celebrate those things we have in common, like our love for friends and family, our collective desire for peace and prosperity, and hope for the new year. We define holidays in a myriad of different ways, and that's okay. A preferable definition is one stated by a little-known progressive philosopher. A holiday or holy day is any day you are placed to put your feet on the floor in the morning. A holiday or holy day is every day the Creator blesses you with the opportunity to make a difference in someone's life, in your community, in the world. Words to live by: make a difference. Season's greetings: Ramadan Mubarak, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Habar Ghani, Happy Holidays, and a happy, prosperous New Year. From the Open Eye. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This has been Open Eye, WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. All right. Thanks for joining me. Hope you learned something. I know I did before I got here. Like I always tell you, global African supremacy, because the world was a much better place when the black man ruled.